So today, I have the pleasure of talking with Paula Robbins, a person I just sort of bumped into by accident at another group. And I wanted to talk to her more about her particular style of spirituality or being. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm really honored to be here. I'm so grateful that you asked.
Yeah, well, so I'm not sure where to start. I know nothing about you. So it's a great place to start. So tell me something about yourself.
So do you want me to give you like the story, like my background, or
Whatever you want to.
Then I'll just start there. So I am a Colorado native in the US, and I grew up in what I jokingly reference as an above average dysfunctional family. Love them dearly, but we were a mess. And there was a lot of abuse, a lot of chaos, a lot of moving. I transferred schools 13 times before I dropped out of high school. I joined Job Corps, which is a United States government program for at-risk youth, basically. Graduated my program there, got a high school diploma, moved to California, and kind of started my life. And in the heart of all of that, the at-risk youth part is the dysfunctional family, and the abuse led to a lot of just overstimulation of my sensitivities. I have always been intuitive. I have always been highly sensitive. And by the time I was about 12 years old, I just couldn't handle it all. So I turned to drugs and alcohol. And between 12 and 18, it was just a constant roller coaster of what is the next fix, the next escape. And a lot of drugs, a lot of alcohol, a lot of running around unsupervised. And at the same time, having a very deep internal wisdom that I don't want to be alcoholic or messy or chaotic. I want to get it together. I want to be different than my above average dysfunctional family. And that's when I joined Job Corps at 18, and then I moved to California. And gratefully, at the end of it, I had spent a lot of time just trying to understand, where can I get help? What's wrong with me? Why, one, have I lived this long? I had made some incredibly reckless decisions as a youth. And I started praying, and I had no idea what I was praying to. It was simply, God, if you are real, I need help. And I got picked up hitchhiking by the right guy. And I ended up in the 12-step programs at the age of 20. And since then, the spirituality, the nature of my soul has healed a great deal. I've explored every avenue of healing that I could find that was available, that was right. I've been divinely led into some just beautiful healing work along the way. And that was 34 years ago. Over the course of this 34 years, I am still in recovery, still a very active member in the 12-step programs. I changed careers. I was in corporate America for 16 years in the staffing and recruiting industry. And then right about my 40th birthday, I changed careers. So almost 15 years ago, I became a hypnotherapist. I had done a great deal of healing work before this transition. 12 steps, psychiatry, psychology, shamans, energy workers, psychic healers. And then when I moved into the field of hypnotherapy, the very first day of the hypnotherapy training, my instructor, the amazing Zoilita Grant, she said to all of us in the class, we were a group of about 9 women, and she said, I know that you're here because you've done a lot of your own work and you've done a lot of healing, but I just want to forewarn you that if you haven't done any healing at the subconscious level, that some of the things that you felt you might have addressed or resolved may resurface. And I remember sitting in that class that first day, just thinking, whatever, I've done some work. And let me just tell you that a lot of stuff surfaced. there was some pretty deep-seated trauma that I thought I had worked through that surfaced. And the year 2007 was just this incredible year. It was training as a hypnotherapist. I worked 2 jobs. I was a single mom 24/7 with my younger daughters at the time. I had 3 surgeries in '07. It was just this incredible year of evolution and growth and so much shock to the soul that was so needed. And at the same time, a lot of my trauma is surfacing. And it was towards the end of the summer in '07 that I learned about cellular release therapy. That was the modality I was going to train in as a hypnotherapist. And it was that training that addressed a lot of the resurfacing trauma. And the resurfacing trauma included nightmares, anxiety. So much was going on. And a lot of it just was because we were poking around in the subconscious and in the soul. And the cellular release work was the work that really, really started creating an internal shift that was just so healing and so peaceful that I knew then, just as I know now, that that would be the work that I would continue to do. And then as a metaphysician, hypnotherapist, healer, soul coach, I love all the titles. I've self-titled myself all of them. This last 15 years, I've grown tremendously in my intuition, in my ability to connect with energy and have an awareness of how to work with people and support them. And I've learned that probably my greatest gift in all of this is just the ability to see where people's light is. Like, where is their light? Where is their greatest strength? And what's in the way? And helping them walk through healing all of the things that are holding them back from living in that, higher light of who they are. So it's been a long and winding road, one that I'm still on and still love dearly. I'm so curious where I'll be in a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, because it's been so progressive. It's grown so much. I've changed so much. So, that's the story, and I'm going to stick to it.
So tell me more about this cell release therapy.
Cellular release therapy was created by a beautiful mentor of mine, Anne Deshane Drucker. She took a class more than 40 years ago from a doctor who created something called cellular command therapy. And when he trained in this modality, I'm sorry, I don't know his name, he trained all of the people to make it their own. However you use this, when you work at the cellular level and you speak to the cells and the subconscious and ask permission to release traumatic events and fears and beliefs, it is the deepest level of healing that one can attain, was how it was presented. And Anne advanced that into much more of a metaphysical and spiritual process with a lot of energy to it. So she's been teaching it for over 40 years. I was a student in '07, '08, '09, 2010, 11. I revisited the class many, many times for probably 5 or 6 years, and have been utilizing it and making it my own over that time. And it is a body of work in which predominantly it's about asking the subconscious permission. Can you release and clear a traumatic event, a fear, a limiting belief? And simply spoken, cellular release therapy is about letting go. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I kind of say in, a lighter sense, I'm certain that people have said to you, or you've said to yourself, Stephen, you got to let this go. And when we think about the things that we want to let go, like, why can't I let this go? Why have I been stuck with this? Why does this still trigger so deeply? And when you move into a healing state with a facilitator, and the facilitator asks permission of the subconscious mind, I want to ask you now, can you let this go? it's a very different presentation to the soul and to the subconscious than, Stephen, you need to let this go. I've had many people over my life say, Paula, you need to let it go. Paula, you need to move on. Paula, you got to get over that. Easier said than done. So in this particular body of work, being held by very loving healers and very grateful for the other women that I trained with and people that I still do this work with today, we trade with each other. It's been really beautiful. The different layers of shedding and release for the different experiences or life themes, core issues that have been difficult. So I'm a really different person than I was when I started this work. Of course, really different than I was when I stepped onto the path of healing 34 years ago. But much, much more deep healing has taken place because I do a lot of the inner soul and subconscious work.
So I'm trying to find, I have an understanding, I think an understanding of what you're talking about. But can you give me like a specific example, something a little more concrete?
So I'll speak to the event that was probably the most life-changing for me as a traumatic event. When in 2007, there was a specific traumatic event that took place when I was a very small child. It's not an event that I talk too much about in detail because a lot of people get very triggered by it, but I was severely abused. And this particular event surfaced right away when I started training as a hypnotherapist, and I started having nightmares about it, and the anxiety and fear that not only that event, but that life, that age, that period of time created really surfaced. And in the heart of a really busy year. So when I was training as a cellular release therapist, as a specialist in cellular release, the instructor, Anne, asked in the classroom if there is anyone who has a singular traumatic event that they would like to be the demonstration client for. And so reluctantly, back of the class, I raised my hand, and she had gotten to know me a little bit through some of the classes and selected me as the demo. And then that night, knowing that I was going to have to tell this story in front of the class, because the way that a singular traumatic event, some sessions we clear like a list of events, but some of those events have a lot more weight to them. So that becomes its own singular session of a singular event, which we basically detail kind of blow by blow. How did that day go? How did that event come together? So in the class, I was sharing the story of this event that took place when I was a small child, and how I got in trouble and how it unfolded. And as I'm telling the story, beautiful Anne is holding this amazing space for me. She's very grounded. She's very serene, and then what happened? And then what happened? And she has this beautiful voice. And the whole class, all of the other ladies are in there, and we're all just in tears. I mean, it was a rough moment. And so we do the demo. I lie on the floor, and that's how we did a demo at that time. And she goes through the protocol of clearing each piece. I want to ask you now about this part of that day. Can you clear this? And everything that we clear is done through ideomotor signals. So there's a yes finger and a no finger. So yes, I can clear this part of that day. Can you clear this next part of that day? Can you clear this next part of that day? As we move into the evening, when things really get volatile, can you clear this? And I'm clearing each of these pieces blow by blow. And then we clear like what beliefs resulted from this event. Is there any blame or punishment within yourself that resulted from this event? Are there any fears relative to this event? Soul contracts, soul agreements, anything else? And we cleared all of it. And it took about an hour, hour and a half, and we all went to lunch. And this is again Saturday, the next day. And excuse me. At lunch, I remember sitting there trying to connect to the energy of that event again, of that day. and it was gone. I couldn't connect to the energy. It was disconnected. It was discharged. All of us at lunch were light and we were jovial and we were really enjoying our connection together. And that was in 2007. And the energy of that event, the trauma of that event, the triggers of that event have never again resurfaced.
Wow.
And it was amazing and beautiful and absolutely the healing I've been seeking since it happened. So
Wow.
that's one example.
That's a great story. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I can relate to that on all kinds of different levels because I was trained as a yoga teacher. And one of the first things I had to realize is that sometimes when you put a person in a posture and a muscle or a part of their body is stretched or relaxed, that was always tense, all this emotion starts coming up.
Right.
And like it was, and people were like astonished. Why is this down dog movement suddenly making me cry? Right. And remember, the death of my mother or whatever it is. But, it's that principle that, the body and the subconscious are connected.
Well, and I love to explain that to people because, again, cellular healing is one of the deepest forms of healing that you can attain. But what does that mean? What does it mean to hold something at the cellular level, or what is cellular memory, more appropriately spoken? So my explanation, the Paula understanding, is that there's no mistake that the word cell and the word soul are so similar. I think that's a really important thing to think about. 2, our cellular memory is like a vault. Everything that we've ever been through from this present moment all the way through the history of our soul is in our cellular memory, first of all. And that includes not just our own life experiences, from gestation through birth, through our lifetime, but also what's going on in our soul history that we're bringing in to our cellular memory, cell and soul. But let's add in the cellular memory of the DNA of the generations prior, our parents, our grandparents, our greats. There is so much in the DNA that comes into our cellular makeup. And here's the science part. When we have an emotional event, especially if it's an emotional event that's intense enough to affect our soul, we have a chemical reaction. And people know this science. We have, cortisol, we might have adrenaline. If it's a good event, it's endorphins and dopamine. There's about 200 neural peptides and or hormones that can release in various cocktails, depending upon the intensity of the emotion. And then our cells recreate themselves. Within 24 to 72 hours, this cellular makeup with all this chemical emotional cocktail from a very intense experience is recreating. So now we have a recreation of the cellular memory in a new cell, in a new cell, in a new cell, in a new cell, our whole life. So this is part why some of these events that we can't just let go are still very prominent in our present day. When you think about a really tough moment in your life, whether it's grief or an injury or a moment when you were embarrassed, it's very easy to remember that event just like it was yesterday. And that's the cellular memory.
So how long have you been doing this as a practice for yourself?
15 years.
Long time.
Yeah. I mean, not nearly as frequent as in my early years. In my early years, there were so many of us that were learning the protocols and learning the process. And we did a lot of trades with each other because we were learning it and we were in love with it. And we knew that this was an amazing body of work. So for myself, I did a lot of the clearings. I did a lot of just events. And then I started doing some of the clearing around like the core themes, deeper core issues, difficulty in the relationship with my mother, difficulty in the relationship with my birth father, who I had never met, but was probably one of the deepest clearings of all of them, the most intense. Unworthy, or not good enough, or fear of being seen. There were several different topics at the deeper clearing process that I did. And every now and again, because healing comes in layers, and because we are always evolving, something will surface, and it'll make me aware that there's something I need to work on now. And one of the stories I like to tell there is about, I was working with a woman who came in, and she asked me, so do you feel like you're healed? And I answered her with the response of, I hope not. And she got angry with me. She didn't like that answer. And she goes, what do you mean? What do you mean you hope not? And I said, because every time something surfaces, it means that there's a new awakening, and there's a new level of ascension, and something really cool is coming when I face it. It's never easy. I mean, healing work isn't easy. It's you got to be brave, and you've got to have some grit, and you've got to be courageous. This is not easy to look at our shadows, or our wounds. But boy, when we do, the light that comes, the enlightenment, the wisdom, the relief, it's worth it.
So if someone's watching this and was interested to, see, to look into this, are there books or things that they could read or research?
Gratefully, cellular memory and cellular healing has become much more prominent than it was when I started this work as a practitioner 15 years ago. 15 years ago, you couldn't find anything about cellular release or cellular healing or cellular evolution or cellular memory even. But now, if you were to Google cellular memory or cellular healing, it's everywhere. And in different forms. I mean, there's not very many of us that do the cellular release therapy. I'd probably say, and it's a guess, and I don't know how accurate the guess is, but of people who are active practitioners of this work around the world, I'd probably say 30 to 60, 30 to 50.
Yeah.
I have my team. So I'm the founder of Sunlit Pathways, and there are 7 of us that are a part of my network. And we all came together in 2012. And we're people who've taken the training together, people who've traded with each other, people who've been doing this work for a long time. So 10 years ago, we started the network. And the network started out with about 5 of us. Now there's 7. And we work with people all over the world for this work. We've worked with people in 40 different countries. So people who are interested in this work and they find cellular healing through us, they go in through the Sunlit Pathways website and they sign up for the consultation. And then one of the specialists will reach out to them to set up just the initial consultation, which is just a conversation to talk about it, how it works, what is the necessary preparation for your first session, things like that. And there's no obligation to go forward. It's just an important conversation to be aware of what it is. Are you ready for this kind of deeper work? And if so, then this is the process.
Do you have a meditation practice or any other practice in addition to this?
I do personally, yes, absolutely. Yeah. Every day.
And what kind of meditation do you practice?
I like prayer and meditation. So for me, I have a daily ritual that I've had for about 20 years. It's evolved a lot over the years, but right now, the biggest thing to me, and I preach this to anybody who will listen, is create a ritual, create a committed time that is your quiet time. And I call it quiet time. In the morning, I feed my dog. We've got a dog door, so the dog does her own thing. I pour my coffee. I'm at a place where I'm trying to quit checking email first. I'm not there yet. The business person in me I just want to get her quiet and move into much more synergy with my spirit. Not there yet. So I check email, make sure there's nothing urgent. Go into Insight Timer. It's my favorite app on my phone. check my notes to see what my friends on Insight Timer are doing or saying. I set the timer for 20 minutes. Sometimes I go over that, sometimes I go under it. And then I go into a practice of prayer. I use a process called PRAY. It's an acronym that I found years ago that I love. It's praise, thank you for my home, my sleep, my practice, the divinity, my recovery, my children, whatever it is, long list. R is repent. And this is basically simplified. Please help me to forgive myself and to help me forgive others. And I'll go through whatever comes up. Do I need to forgive myself for this, that, or the other? Do I need to forgive others for this, that, or the other? And I kind of go through and list, please help me to be forgiving. A is ask. Please guide my day. Help me to be of highest service to those that I serve. Please bless my children, keep them safe. Please bless my neighbor who's going to be having hip surgery this week. Whatever is ask. And then why to me is the most important, that's yield. And that is about surrender. We've been given free will to succeed, to fail, to be happy, to do whatever. And I firmly believe that if we align our free will with divine will, asking that the divine come and align wills, that it creates a completely different foundation for the day. And I move through the day knowing I'm supported, I'm connected, I'm at one, and my days just go better. So I get into why, and then I just, whatever time is left, I just kind of sit and breathe in light, breathe it into every cell, focus on my breath and breathing in light. Sometimes I align the chakras and do healing and cleansing of the chakras. Sometimes I like to get into the vortex and just start seeing all of the good that I seek to allow and intend. Sometimes I just sit and breathe and just feel the higher frequency of divinity in my body. So the second portion rotates, changes, but I always go through that PRAY part first. And that's 20 minutes. Sometimes it's 18 minutes. Sometimes it's 40 minutes. But I don't skip it. It's something that I love to do every day, sometimes twice a day.
Mhm.
The day gets stressful or crazy, I like to stop and just reconnect. I don't always set the timer to reconnect, but I definitely know when I'm connected, because there's that one moment when I connect, this is like, okay, here I am. I'm at one again.
So I'm not sure what to ask you. I mean, I don't seem to have an agenda here, but it's very interesting to hear you talk. I'm very much connected with sound and tone of voice, and your tone of voice is just a very relaxed, peaceful tone of voice.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I guess the question I have is that how did you get there? I mean, it sounds like it's all of this combined that sort of brought you to this place.
Yes.
Is there something more?
No, I mean, I learned earlier on in my career as a metaphysician that my voice was a gift. And I was very grateful. I have had many moments over this 15 years of truly knowing that I'm channeling through this voice, the right words, the right intuition, the right pace or tone. A lot of it is very much, I don't even know if I can call it mine, but it's definitely something where I have truly felt the voice of divinity working through my vocal cords. And if ever I get ill and I lose my voice or anything like that, I get really nervous. I don't like it when I lose my voice, but it's happened, you know. We're in the era of COVID, and when I got COVID in October, I lost my voice, and I was really bummed and scared, like, is it going to come back? I need my voice. It's my work. It's my love. I need my voice. And here I am. It works just fine.
You have an unusual, I'm somehow focused on your energy, not and I don't know why, but you have a youthful energy that somehow is seems unusual for a person your age.
Well, you know, I feel like I'm on borrowed time, to be honest with you. Those last few years of my addiction and drinking were really severe. I was a very severe blackout drinker. From the beginning, I blacked out the very first time I drank. So it was very scary. And at the end, I became incredibly volatile. And I really knew if I keep going like this, I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make it to 21. I'm definitely not going to make 25. And as I approach 55, I'm really, really clear that I'm very gifted to still be here. I'm very protected, and I was supposed to stay. I was supposed to be here. I was supposed to do the work that I do. I mean, I feel so eternally grateful that I found my path. I know I'm on the right path of how I'm supposed to be walking. How it's going to unwind is still happening, but I know I'm on it. So I still feel really grateful, like that, 20, 25-year-old. I mean, not that I don't have the effects of aging. This aging thing is not for sissies. Let me just say, there's been plenty of struggles. I mean, I'm officially menopausal, and let me just tell you, this has been a ride of hormonal changes and all the different things to try to fix it, which included some artificial hormone therapy that messed with my voice. And I was like, no. So yeah, I've had my own struggles with aging, but at the same time, there's just this deep gratitude for living. I'm just grateful to be here.
The word that keeps coming up, and I have no idea why, is grace.
Oh, that's one of my favorite words. I've been deeply graced. I mean, I wrote a blog recently about divine grace and close calls. There were many events prior to my recovery and since my recovery where I am very clear how guided and protected I am. I mean, that event at 4 years old, I should have died. At a minimum, I should have been hospitalized. Was not, and I made it fine. I had several close call car accidents, or non-accidents, that more appropriately said. I do have a near-death experience. I did die from alcohol poisoning. I remember it vividly, and I didn't die. I'm here. So I am very grateful for the grace of the divine. And I hope that shows. I'm grateful that you see that, and that is the word that you chose.
I didn't choose it. It just arose.
Wow. It's a word I love a lot.
I was trained as a yogi, and there's this sort of thing that I've learned that sometimes there's almost like an entity or a presence that comes with certain words, and grace seems to be one of them. So if you were to have a conversation with grace, this grace that has protected you and got you to this point, what would you say to grace?
Thank you. There's a unity with that energy that I feel very, very deeply connected to, that I feel stays really close. And I wish that I connected with it more readily in the moments when I'm in stress or overwhelm. But I always come back, and I always come back to that place of trusting there will be grace. When you were asking the question, I was thinking about, I thought you were going to ask, like, who are the guides, and if you could name it, and and there's such a team of divine entity, energy, being, light being that I connect with, that I couldn't give it a singular name, but it is certainly a unity of energetic presence that I sense when I think of the word.
Well, grace is certainly with you. I can feel it. There's a grace that comes through you, through your voice, through your being, through your presence. And I think that's what I was sensing. There's something more than just your personality there.
Well, thank you.
Not that your personality is bad. I'm just, there's just something more, like another level, a depth that, is palatable.
Wow. Gosh, what a kind thing to say. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, I hope sometimes my grit comes through too. There's a real balance of both. Let me just say,
So tell me about grit then.
Well, I have two really beautiful daughters, and they are 27 and almost 32. I've got an almost 3-year-old granddaughter and a wonderful son-in-law to my 32-year-old daughter. And my children will speak to my mama bear side. When anybody came anywhere near messing with my children, whether it was a teacher or another parent or anything, the grit side steps up. I'm very, very protective of my loved ones. And I'm not afraid to speak. I am a firm believer in the term graceful confrontation. Mm-hmm. And I will do all I can to teach people what that means. But I'm not afraid of confrontation. And if I need to speak to somebody and have a conversation about something that I feel is out of place or not right, I will do so as graciously as I can, but with intention to set things straight and get the air cleared. It wasn't always as graceful, but over the years, I've really practiced, what does graceful confrontation mean? On my YouTube channel, I did a whole vlog about it because I think it's so important. Yeah, there's a gritty side that's pretty unafraid in the world, in most ways.
You mentioned shamanism, and then when you mentioned, mama bear, female bear, I suddenly realized that might be a possible connection with a very strange experience I just had recently. Because when I was setting things up, to interview you, I live in suburban Connecticut, a little, town where people commute to New York and normal, range of houses. I have a little bit of woods right behind my house, like less than half a block of woods. So it's not a whole lot. And I was setting up all the arrangements with you. And I was sitting here and I noticed something caught my eye. There was a movement. I'm sitting right in front of a double sliding glass door that looks over a deck that is connected to a deck. And I was shocked. There was a 250-pound bear with its nose pressed against the screen, looking in the door. And I was like, I was speechless. I was blown away.
Wow.
And I took a picture. I'll send you a picture of it. And I was just figuring out, I'm part Native American. Part of this tradition is to, when these coincidences happen, when these synchronicities happen, and especially when animals are involved in some unusual way, we really had to look at what is going on. What is this a sign of? Wow. And when you said, I had this sort of bear energy, female bear energy, this was a female bear. Wow. I never had this happen ever in my life. So I don't know if there's any coincidence to this, but it seems like there's some connection somewhere.
Interesting. Yeah, I haven't done a check-in for a while on my animal totems, and I'm curious where they are. I mean, the ones that I connect with the most, like the falcon, I really connect with the falcon, and the mama bear for sure. but it's not something I've ever looked at as an animal totem. So I'm curious what would show up if I were to kind of check in.
I think a bear, at least in Native American tradition, the bear is considered a healer involved with herbal medicine.
Okay, cool.
Or at least that's what there's probably many other associations, but that's the one I know.
Makes sense. I mean, I'm pretty anti-Western medicine. Not that I wouldn't use it. I mean, I go to the doctor when I need to, when it's something that I can't resolve with nutrition or herbs. But I'm a big believer in food as medicine. Try to heal thy body. And, kind of always working on that, staying healthy and trying to eat healthy and make better choices. And some days are great, some days are not. Human.
So what I'm going to do is I'd like you to, I'm going to end the recording and we can stay and talk for a little bit afterwards, but just tell people if they wanted to reach you, how they could do it. What's the name of your website?
So you can find me through sunlitpathways.com, or you can also find me through paularobbins.com. And the sunlitpathways.com website shows a few options. You can connect for one-on-one. You can join the membership, the Light Fellowship. I gather once a month for the 222 call, and that's the second Tuesday at 2 p.m. Mountain Time. And we just kind of gather to talk metaphysics, esoteric conversations. I pick a topic and I teach. And then there's some digital stuff, guided meditations or courses, things like that. Okay.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to do the interview, and I feel very fortunate to be able to talk to you today.
Well, thank you again. I really, truly feel honored that you asked. Thank you so much. It was nice to be here. Good conversation.
It was. Hold on, I have to figure out how to do this. There we go.